Friends, welcome to the Essentials of Inorganic Chemistry. Today onwards, I am going to start a new series of lectures on quantum mechanics. This series is particularly targeting the beginners who wish to learn the quantum mechanics. This first talk will be about the introduction and the first postulate of the quantum mechanics. Friends, I believe that the following have advanced the quantum mechanics. The first one is Advaita Siddhant, Max Planck, de Broglie, Heisenberg, Schrödinger, Feynman, Einstein, and many others. What is quantum mechanics, friends? Quantum mechanics is a spiritual science. This science is particularly useful when the object under your investigation is microscopic and is having very low mass. This science was invented during the search of the structure of an atom, as against the deterministic classical mechanics or the Newtonian mechanics. The quantum mechanics is a theory of probability. The principles of quantum mechanics seems to have originated from Shiv Mahapuran, Bhagavad Gita, and probably some other ancient literatures also. So without giving more introduction, I will straight away begin with the statement of the first postulate of quantum mechanics. The statement goes like this. The state of a quantum mechanical system is completely defined by a wave function psi rt that depends on its position, that is r, at a time t, and psi star rt psi rt dx dy dz, that is the wave function psi rt multiplied by its complex conjugate, which you can also put it as modulus psi square. This term gives the probability of finding the system under investigation in the small volume element dx dy dz, which is located at r at a particular time t. Friends, this is quite a lengthy statement and it also involves some new terms. Perhaps the terms are not really very new, but they need a different light of vision for a better understanding. So what I will do is, I will try and simplify the terms involved in this statement, and then with this understanding, we will again read the statement so that our understanding of this statement will be better. So the first term is state of a system. The state of a system is the set of properties of a system like mass, position, velocity, momentum, energy, etc., using which we describe the system at a particular time. See, this can be little bit analogous to defining a person. You know, sometimes what we do is, in order to define a person, we say that he has the first name, he has this second name, and then he has the surname, and he is from this particular town or country or village, whatever, and then we say he has the weight which is equal to x, and few more properties. Some of the properties remain constant, but some of the properties do change. So a particular set of properties will be the state of that particular person, or in this case the state of that particular system. Now the values of these properties, which I have already listed, define the state of that particular instant only. So whenever the value of any of these properties change, we say that the state of the system has changed. So one system can have many states. Then the next term is quantum mechanical system. Quantum mechanical system as such is any system on which quantum mechanics is applicable. But then when is quantum mechanics particularly applicable? The answer is when the system under study is a microscopic system or a microscopic object or a microscopic particle which has obviously very low mass. The examples are like electron, atoms, molecules and so on. So that is a quantum mechanical system. You cannot call cricket ball a quantum mechanical system, but you can call an electron a quantum mechanical system. Now when we say defined, it means that you have specified with all the details. You have made it unique. So after understanding these three terms, we again read the statement. The state of a quantum mechanical system is completely defined. Let us understand few more terms, because then you have a wave function. Now wave function psi rt, what is this? So this wave function psi rt is a variable. Variable is something that keeps on changing. So a variable used to describe the wave is called a wave function. Friends, you have a sine wave, sometimes you have cosine wave. So you use this sine function so as to describe a wave which has initial value equal to 0, and at pi by 2 it becomes maximum, at pi again becomes 0, at 3 pi by 2 becomes minimum, and at 2 pi again becomes 0. So this wave function can be any such wave function which should be able to describe the wave. But then there are certain requirements of a wave function. The first one is it has to be normalized. When you say normalized, mathematically it has to be put like this: triple integration over entire space, and then you have the wave function multiplied by its complex conjugate, that is psi star rt psi rt, in the volume dx dy dz. This is a very long presentation, so in order to make it short, we can also present it like this. In place of triple integration with entire space, what you can do is you can put a single integral with the limits ranging from minus infinity to plus infinity, and then you have to write psi star rt psi rt, and in place of dx dy dz you can put d tau, which is a small volume element. So normalized means the value of this integral has to be equal to 1. Now why do we need this value to be 1? And let us understand the meaning of this integral. See, psi star rt psi rt is a representation for the probability, as we have already defined in the first postulate. We have said that psi star rt psi rt defines the probability. Now integrating this probability term over entire space and in a small volume element, if you get 1, it means that the total probability of finding this particular system in this entire space is 100%, which means that the quantum mechanical system that we are studying is definitely present in the space which is under our study. So that is one of the requirements, because if you are not sure that the quantum mechanical system does really exist in the space, then you cannot describe its behavior. So the first requirement is it has to be normalized. Sometimes it is not normalized, but then we can compromise if it is at least a normalizable. So which means that if instead of 1, say we get value, for example 7, then what we can do is you have the integral on the left hand side and 1 on the right hand side. So if on the right hand side if you get 7, then you divide both the sides by 7 and eventually the right hand side becomes 1. So that is a simple example to explain the normalizability. So if it is normalized, wave function is normalized, then it is good. If it is not normalized, it should at least be normalizable, so that by multiplying or dividing by a constant you get 1. Now this thing is possible, this normalizability comes into the picture only when the value of the integral remains finite throughout. Because if say at any point in the space, if the value of this integral becomes infinite, then you cannot normalize it, because this infinite number cannot be converted into 1 by say multiplication or division or anything. So this value has to remain finite. Then yet another requirement is the wave function and its first derivative should be finite. This is already mentioned. It should be single valued. You are talking about probability, and then you cannot have two values of probability at one point. So it has to be single valued at different points, and the probability cannot vanish at any point in the space under the study. Therefore it has to be continuous. So these are the characteristics of a wave function, which is called a well-behaved wave function: finite, single valued, continuous, and normalizable. Now in this light, let us again state the first postulate of the quantum mechanics. The state of a quantum mechanical system is completely defined by a wave function. Now we know what is state, now we know what is quantum mechanical system. We know what do we mean by saying completely defined. We also know what is a wave function, and we also know its characteristics. So the state is defined by a wave function psi rt, that is position and time at a particular time. The addition to the statement is, when you take psi star rt multiplied by psi rt at dx dy dz, it gives us the probability of finding the system in a small volume element, which is the area under your study. So I hope that the meaning of this postulate is quite clear to a beginner. But then still there will be some question that why do we need to introduce such an awkward probabilistic postulate? Do we not have simple ways, or what do we do when you have a non-quantum mechanical system? Let us take the example. Say if I have a cricket ball, then do we need to use this postulate of quantum mechanics? No. Then at this time you can use the classical mechanics, which is relatively simpler, which is relatively more observable, and which can be experienced. And this classical mechanics says that the state of a one body system, see, it is not about quantum mechanical system, it is a one body system, means may be a cricket ball, at time t is completely defined by its position and velocity. So if you know the initial position and initial velocity of a one body system, say for example cricket ball, which is not a quantum mechanical system, of course. If it is a quantum mechanical system, I will tell you how we have the problem. But if you have a cricket ball, then if you know the initial position and initial velocity in terms of three coordinates, like position is defined by say x, y, z in a Cartesian coordinate system, and in the same way if it is moving in 3 dimensions, your velocity will have 3 components, vx, vy and vz. Then if you know the original or initial positions and velocities, then the state will be completely defined. Now if the body is moving, then you say you want to know that what will be the position or what will be the state of this particular cricket ball after some interval of time. That is a time evolution. In that case, you have to apply an equation called Newton's equation. This is called m, that is mass, multiplied by d square r upon dt square, that is the double differential of the position, and this is the force, that is called the force. So if you know the forces acting on a cricket ball with mass m, then you can understand the time evolution of that object, that at what time will it be where. That is called the time evolution. Now see friends, the position r has three components, x, y and z. Therefore, the force will also have three components, fx, fy and fz. But just to make the understanding simple, let us assume that a cricket ball is moving only in one dimension, and therefore we will take only the x component. So if we say that initially if the position of the cricket ball is say x, then dx by dt, that is the first derivative, the change in position of this cricket ball at a particular interval of time or change in time, that is called Vx, and that is the velocity in the x direction or the x component of the velocity of this cricket ball. And then if you take further derivative, then what you do is d square x by dt square, d square x by dt square, which you can also say that is equal to dvx by dt, and then what you get is ax, that is the acceleration. So what we derive is the basic equation. Force is defined as mass into acceleration. So this is how you get the original equation, m into ax is equal to fx, that is mass times the x component of the acceleration gives the x component of the force acting on the object. Now say the initial position of the cricket ball and you call it x0, the velocity, and then you can easily calculate the new position of the cricket ball at particular time t. Say for example, after 10 seconds, what is going to happen is, if the cricket ball is traveling in x direction with a velocity of 10, then 10 say centimeter per second, then the new position can be simply the original position plus 10 multiplied by, if you want to know it for 10 seconds, then 10 into 10, that is 100. So it will move in x direction by 100 centimeter. This is very simple, but this is not unfortunately applicable to quantum mechanical system. Now you will have a question, why it is not applicable? Then the reasons are two. The first one was given by de Broglie in his hypothesis. In the de Broglie hypothesis, which was about the wave particle duality, he said that the matter has dual nature, the wave as well as particle nature, and as the mass of the matter decreases, the wave nature becomes pronounced. So the quantum mechanical system is a system which is microscopic and which is having very low mass. So in that case, you will have the wave nature rather than the particle nature. So this is one reason. But the more important reason is, it is originated from the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. What Heisenberg's uncertainty principle states is that it is impossible to determine the position and velocity of a microscopic particle simultaneously precisely. So you cannot know the position and velocity at the same time precisely. So again read the statement of this classical mechanics. The state of a one body system at time t is completely defined by its position and velocity at time t. So you cannot know this. If you are dealing with a microscopic particle, you will not be able to know the position and velocity at the same time, and therefore this classical mechanics will not be able to help us in studying the behavior of a microscopic particle. That is how the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle has created a hurdle in studying the behavior of microscopic material. So now that is why, in absence of the knowledge or the simultaneous knowledge of the position and velocity at the same time with full precision, we have to have a postulate. So that is why this new postulate is framed, which says that the state of a quantum mechanical system is completely defined by a wave function psi RT, which depends on position and time. Now you cannot know the velocity. So if you know the position at a time, then you can completely define the state of a quantum mechanical system. But provided that if you multiply the psi RT, or that is a wave function, with its complex conjugate, the probability of finding the system, this multiplication gives the probability of finding the system. If you see the earlier case in classical mechanics, what we have done is we have given x is equal to x0 plus bt, where x is the new position. So it is determining the new position of the cricket ball. But here you cannot determine the new position. What you can do is you can find out the probability of finding the system in this area, in this volume dx, dy, dz. So that is what we can do under the given condition. Friends, postulate. This was the first postulate of the quantum mechanics. Postulate is something which is assumed to be true, and it needs to be assumed to be true for the continuation of the discussion on a particular topic. I always give this example. So when I take the first lecture on quantum mechanics, I ask a question: do we exist? Then the students don't answer, but then I will answer like this: we exist because we think that we exist. So if we don't think that we exist, then there is no question of our existence. But now if we want to discuss our behavior, then we have to think that we exist. We have to assume that we exist. So once you assume that we exist, then only we can discuss our behavior. So in the same way, once we assume that the state of a quantum mechanical system can be completely defined by a wave function that depends on its position only and at a particular time, and this wave function multiplied by its complex conjugate gives us the probability of finding that quantum mechanical system in a particular volume element, then you can continue the discussion in quantum mechanics. Now friends, quantum mechanics has two aspects. It is the philosophy, and the other aspect is it requires a lot of mathematics, so it is also mathematics. I have not actually solved any problem in this entire lecture, but still I have given you some understanding of the characteristics of a well-behaved wave function, and I expect you to attempt solving some problems based on this. I want you to check whether the three wave functions that I have given over here, the sine inverse x in the limit of -1 to 1, then e raised to minus x in the limit of 0 to infinity, whether these functions are well-behaved wave functions or not. How will you check? What you have to do is you have to see whether these functions are finite, single-valued, continuous, and they in this particular limit, and do they satisfy the requirements of a well-behaved wave function? If they do, then they are well-behaved wave functions. If they don't, then they are not acceptable wave functions. So do reply to this question in the comment box, and goodbye till we meet again.